So earlier today, I went through every single matchup for Week 10 fantasy football and found the must-start and sit running backs for this particular week. I do it every single week for both positions, and the reason I do it on Saturdays is because it gives us time to get injury reports on all of these teams except the Monday night games, but we have more information moving forward in preparation for the week, and I'm glad I did it for the wide receivers, especially this week, because there's a lot of difficult decisions we're going to have to make at the wide receiver position. So we're going through it again, every single matchup for Week 10 fantasy football to find the must-start and sit wide receivers for this week. And I am very close to 7,500 subscribers, and I have you guys to thank for that. And as soon as I hit 7,500, I'm going to be giving away a lot of these F-Event hats for free. So please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support and to help me get there. You guys, it is greatly appreciated, the support. Let's go ahead and just dive through these matchups right now. Colts and Patriots playing in Germany. I've said this over the week. They're playing in Germany. Please make sure you know that. And please make sure you know it's an early Sunday game. So have your lineup set by either tonight on Saturday night or by tomorrow morning, early before the game starts. Michael Pittman is must start to me, and he's the only one. Michael Pittman with an injured Josh Downs, especially. And regardless of Josh Downs' availability, Michael Pittman's been the wide receiver one, and it hasn't been particularly close as far as consistency goes. Josh Downs has become more involved over the weeks, but Michael Pittman still continues to be the main read. He's getting 8 to 10 targets per game. And in this matchup against a very weak Patriots defense, especially secondary, there's no way I'm sitting Michael Pittman. I don't care if it's overseas. I'm playing Michael Pittman, and I'm telling my audience, you can play him with full confidence. Josh Downs and Demario Douglas are both injured. They're both heading into the week questionable. And I have not seen leniency either way on if they're going to play or sit. So I would just say, let's monitor this situation throughout the rest of the day on Saturday and into tomorrow morning on Sunday. So I think if they both play, they're both very flexible options. Josh Downs has obviously been very involved consistently, and he continues to have pretty good upside, especially in a PPR format. Same thing with Demario Douglas. Kendrick Bourne is out. Demario Douglas is the wide receiver one, and I think he can be played. But I will say, other Patriots wide receivers, even if Demario Douglas does not play, you cannot play Patriots wide receivers. It's very similar to the Giants wide receiver situation. They don't have another wide receiver that's had 200 yards receiving this year. It's not good. Patriots wide receivers, you can't play other ones besides Demario Douglas. Browns at Ravens here. Next matchup. Amari Cooper. It's so hard. Every single week, Amari Cooper is borderline start, borderline flex. That's just his reality right now. I think that Amari Cooper, I can't tell my audience to sit him because there's no rhyme or reason that I have found when Amari Cooper hits or when he doesn't hit. I have not found a rhyme or reason for this guy. So I can't confidently tell my audience, sit him this week and play him this week. You just, if you want the upside play of Amari Cooper that he provides you, and he did last week, play him. Just take the chance. He's taking on a very tough Ravens defense in Baltimore. Signs would point it's probably not going to be a great week for him, but I don't want to tell my audience to sit him and then him go off for 30-plus points. We want to play for upside because we're playing fantasy football to win. We're playing to win, baby. So take the chance. I am taking the chance in several leagues this week, but that's what I would advise you to do, though. Zay Flowers has fallen into flex territory. Zay Flowers, it's like the Ravens offense has always been with Lamar Jackson, which is the wide receivers just don't have much upside week to week. Yeah, there will be pop-off weeks, for sure. But Zay Flowers is the wide receiver one in this offense, and he can't find consistency, and he hasn't found much upside at all. So Zay Flowers is a problem, for sure. But I do think that just from a target perspective, he can still be played. And then Odell Beckham Jr., very low-tier flex option guy, and I'll tell you the reason why. He got in the end zone last week, and he was very involved. And then the week prior to that, he had zero. He gave you a goose egg. A legit goose egg. So, again, no rhyme or reason for Odell Beckham going off or when he doesn't. Maybe there's a narrative here that he goes up against his former team and they give him the ball a lot because they want him to destroy them. I'm not confident saying that Odell Beckham Jr. is some high-end flex option. Rashad Bateman, same thing every week. 2 catches, 30 yards, not worth it. You can count on consistency from Rashad Bateman, and the consistency, the upside just isn't there. And it's the same thing with Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore is the ultimate I don't understand why this guy doesn't produce more in fantasy football right now. The guy, at the very least, 5 targets per game. And he can't do anything with them. 2 catches for 20 yards is basically his MO this year. It's awful. It's terrible. So, yeah, volume is there. But if you can't show me that you can consistently capitalize on that volume, I can't have you playable. And especially against the Ravens defense that's extraordinarily tough, playing downhill, mean football right now. Can't tell you to play Elijah Moore this week. Packers and Steelers here. Obviously, we've got a big list because we've got Packers players on this list. Deontay Johnson is the only must start. I've been kind of dogging Deontay Johnson for weeks now, saying that I would not personally play him in a lot of situations. I've got to accept reality here, and I want my audience to play the best options. Deontay Johnson's the best option in this matchup for me. Target share is consistently getting around 10 targets per game. Finally found the end zone again, and the matchup is great. Jair Alexander doubtful for this game. Everything lines up here for a Steelers wide receiver, and that's why George Pickens is at the top of flex options. Last 2 weeks have been awful. He requested a trade through Instagram after the win against the Titans last week. It's not been looking good, and I've been watching the Steelers for most of my life. And what I can tell you is I have a feeling that they're going to target George Pickens a lot this week. And I think they're going to get him involved this week because they want to keep this guy happy. Not only can they not trade him right now because of the trade deadline passing, but I don't think they want to. This guy is a very good player, and they know it. They know it. And the locker room likes him too. They understand his frustration, and I do too. This offense is not good. The point being that George Pickens, I believe, with the matchup, I believe that from watching the Steelers over my life, this is the type of game that they will give a disgruntled player the ball a lot more just to diffuse the situation in the media. That's my belief on George Pickens this week, and that's why I've got him above all the other Packers receivers. While acknowledging the Packers receivers, good options this week, because the Steelers defense as well, their pass defense is not very good. Now, Joey Porter Jr. has been fantastic at corner this year for the Steelers. So whichever receiver he's primarily on, they're going to struggle. My guess is going to be on Christian Watson, and that plays into why Christian Watson is the lowest on the list here. And also, Christian Watson has done nothing. He's done nothing. He's been a nothing burger this year. Jaden Reed, to me, is the most interesting option of the week. Slot wide receiver. In fact, Mike Tomlin was praising this guy this week, saying he was the best slot receiver in the class in 2023. And he's been very good. So I actually think if you want to play Packers receiver, Jaden Reed's the guy that I actually prefer in this matchup. But all of them are playable. And then everybody else is relevant. 49ers at Jags here. Christian Kirk, Brandon Ayuk, play them both. They're both getting consistent target share. And yes, upside on them very week to week. Christian Kirk needs the end zone, and Brandon Ayuk needs big plays. I mean, neither of them are consistently getting those, but you continue to play them because they're the most important wide receiver on the team. And Deebo Samuel coming back is going to shake things up. I don't think he's must start this week. When you look at what he's done this year in certain games, he's given you nothing when he's been injured. And so I do think there's going to be risk here with Deebo Samuel. And the upside really has not been that high of recently. So I don't think it's worth saying he's must start. I think it's a good flex option. And he's a couple spots ahead of Calvin Ridley for me, while acknowledging they're both big play guys and they both have upside. So as flex options, I think they're both good options this week. And Zay Jones is out again. You can't play Zay Jones, and it's disappointing because this will be the type of game that I actually think Zay Jones would have a really good game in. Saints and Vikings here. It's hard. This is a very tough matchup, and this is the reason why I do these videos on Saturdays. Justin Jefferson is questionable in this game, logged 3 limited practices this week, and obviously if he plays, you play him. You do not sit Justin Jefferson if he plays. Now, I don't think he's going to. The reason why I don't think he's going to is because with 3 limited practices, Justin Jefferson was also telling the media this week he will not play until he's 100%. If he's logging 3 straight limited practices this week, I don't think he's going to go. But of course, if he does, you absolutely play the guy. Chris Olave, I do think is must start. He did well against the Bears last week, and I do think that the Vikings secondary can be beaten. That's the weakness of their defense right here, and Chris Olave could be without another wide receiver that we'll get to in a minute, so he could see even more targets than he already does. Jordan Addison's the highest end flex option guy because he's been so good this year, and he's such a big play threat. And of course, especially if Justin Jefferson doesn't play, Jordan Addison's a very high-end flex option. The matchup is tough, though. Josh Dobbs will struggle this week more than he did last week. Count on that for sure. But Jordan Addison's been just too high upside of a player, and KJ Osborne might not play either. So Jordan Addison, definitely a very replayable option. Rashid Shaheed, regardless of what's happening with Michael Thomas right now, I say it every week, I prefer Rashid Shaheed over Michael Thomas. Every single week consistently, because Michael Thomas sees more targets than him, but Rashid Shaheed consistently gets more big plays than Michael Thomas does. That's why I prefer him. So Rashid Shaheed, I don't care what's happening with Thomas this week. I'd play Rashid Shaheed over him. And Michael Thomas, if you have not heard, apparently had an incident on Friday night. Allegedly was, threw a brick in a guy's truck and got physical. I don't know the whole story. We don't know the full story. I don't even know if he's playing. I haven't seen it any other way to the direction. I filmed this on Saturday morning. We're still waiting for information to come out. If he plays, I think he's a lower tier flex option. So anticipate that, but I understand if you're in a deep league, if you've got injuries, bye weeks, you might need to make a decision like this. So monitor this situation, continue to watch it evolve, and also just know that I consider him, if he plays, a lower tier flex option. And like I said, KJ Osborne, questionable in this game, may or may not play. We'll see. Either way, he's a sick guy for me. Texans and Bengals, again, very, very tough week this week. Jamar Chase, questionable in this game. Obviously, if he plays, you play him. Limited practice all week for him. So, besides Wednesday, he actually did not practice on Wednesday. Limited practice Thursday and Friday. So, be careful. Watch the situation. If he plays, you, of course, play him. Tank Dell, must start. Absolutely must start this week. No Nico Collins. He's out. Very disappointing this week. And possibly no Robert Woods. Nico Collins is absolutely must start because they're going to need points in this game. And the Texans have no run game. They have to throw the ball. They've got to use Tank Dell. They've got to use Dalton Schultz. Tank Dell absolutely must start this week. And then Tyler Boyd must start as well. No T. Higgins in this game. Tyler Boyd is a very, very essential must start. Now keep this in mind. I called Gabe Davis of the Buffalo Bills a must start last week. Another wide receiver 3 on a very explosive offense. And Gabe Davis gave you a goose egg. So I want everybody to know, with Gabe Davis, with Tyler Boyd, there's always the potential they give you nothing, but there's always potential they give you a lot. So, especially in a week where T. Higgins is out, I think this is a Tyler Boyd type of week. So, I'm just saying, do expect that he's a boomer bust guy. That's what you need to know going into it. Robert Woods, if he plays, I think he's flexible. I think he's a middle tier flex option. Honestly, if he plays, I think he's very playable. But watch the situation. Obviously, he's questionable heading into the week. And then the other two guys we discussed, they're out, so you can't play them. Titans at Buccaneers. Mike Evans, DeAndre Hopkins, fire them both up. Mike Evans, big play guy. He's been not hitting as much on the big plays lately, but the Titans secondary is perfect for him. He's playing the Titans secondary, and they have been very susceptible to big plays, especially at the wide receiver position. Mike Evans, you don't sit him. DeAndre Hopkins right now, with Will Levis, I don't sit him. I would not tell my audience to sit him. He's the clear wide receiver 1. No Treylon Burks this week, and he's irrelevant anyways. But DeAndre Hopkins has been the wide receiver 1 with Will Levis, and he's got way more upside with him than he did with Ryan Tannehill. No doubt about it. You play DeAndre Hopkins. And then Chris Godwin's always going to be flexible. Just from a target perspective, but he's never a high and upside guy. It's the same thing every week. At best, we're seeing 6 for 50 or 6 for 60. That's what we're seeing from Chris Godwin. So last week, bad week for him. Just keep it in mind. Chris Godwin's never a high upside guy, but the matchup is good this week and everybody else is relevant. Lions at Chargers here. One of my favorite matchups of the week. Play Keenan Allen, play Amon-Ra St. Brown. Don't make much of me having Keenan Allen one spot above Amon-Ra St. Brown. They're both fantastic options. I don't have a preference, really. This week, they're both fantastic. Clear wide receiver 1s, target hogs, they're very identical players. Very, very identical. So I love both of them coming into this week. And then Josh Reynolds for the Lions, I think he's always going to be flexible because he's been more involved than Jameson Williams has. Jameson Williams has not affected Josh Reynolds I think he's playable. I would not say he's a high-end flex option. I would say he's more in the middle tier, and then Quentin Johnston is in middle tier as well. And Quentin Johnston, just because they're so ravaged with injuries at the wide receiver position, that's the only reason he's here. You can't trust this guy. If you want a big play, you want to take a shot, he's a lower middle tier option type of guy. Nobody that I would suggest my audience to go out of their way to play, though. And Jameson Williams, I need more involvement first before I can tell my audience that you can play him. Falcons at Cardinals here. Marquise Brown, I think he's a must-start this week. Obviously, if you have not heard, Kyler Murray is coming back. That will inevitably raise the upside of Marquise Brown, and especially against the Falcons, this is a good matchup they can take advantage of. So Hollywood Brown, I think he's a must-start this week. And they've got no other options at the wide receiver position, and Michael Wilson is coming into the game injured. Hollywood is a clear, fire-it-up type of play. Drake London, upper tier in the flex options. Coming back after missing a week last week. Good matchup here. I like the matchup. I like a lot of things, but I don't like the Falcons' offense with Arthur Smith and Desmond Ridder / Taylor Heineke. Not good. So they've got lots of problems. Drake London's not one of them, but he's being affected by their bigger problems. And then everybody else, you can't play anybody else in either of these offenses. Giants and Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb, only one must start. And he's a clear must start. You don't sit CeeDee Lamb. He's been fantastic over the past several weeks. Not much to discuss here with him. Nobody's in flex territory. CeeDee Lamb or bust. Nobody else is relevant. All Giants wide receivers, I've been saying for the better part of a month now, do not play any of them. And that was before they were having a Sopranos character playing football at their quarterback position. It's not good. It's not good. Do not play Giants wide receivers. Don't even roster Giants wide receivers. It's not worth it, guys. I'm telling you. Brandon Cooks is not worth it either. He's just not. The big playability's not there, and the target share is not there. Don't play Brandon Cooks. Commanders at Seahawks. As always, the Seahawks, and really the Commanders as well, they just fill up the flex territory list. You can see it on the screen. I've got 5 wide receivers in flex territory here. In order, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. Jackson Smith-Njigba, been the most consistent one over the past 3 weeks now. Consistently getting more targets, and he's consistently providing more upside. He's my favorite Seahawks wide receiver. DK Metcalf, 1 catch for 50 yards last week. He's not consistent, and he doesn't see as much volume consistently as Jackson Smith-Njigba has. Tyler Lockett, 8 targets last week, 3 receptions. This team is shifting towards Jackson Smith-Njigba, and I've been saying this for weeks. Yes, at this point, I prefer Jackson Smith-Njigba over Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. I just do, and I advise my audience confidently that he is the best option in this wide receiver core. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, they were back-to-back my rankings this week. I don't really have a preference. Terry McLaurin has been one for the big plays, similar to a Mike Evans type, except doesn't find the end zone quite as much. And then Jahan Dotson has found the end zone, and he's been getting a good amount of targets lately. They're both flexible, no doubt about it. I don't prefer one or the other, honestly. They're both good options. They both have their merit, and that's why they're both in flex territory, and then everybody else is irrelevant. Jets at Raiders here, the Sunday night game. Devontae Adams, it gets harder and harder every week to say that he's must start, and especially against the Jets secondary, which has been the best against wide receivers this year in fantasy. It's hard, but I continue to play him. Call it stupid. Call it what you want. I honestly understand it. I continue to advise my audience to play him because he's still seeing the target share. And we know what this guy can do. Devontae Adams was down in my rankings this week. He was around 20 at the wide receiver position. But I still think you could play him. And it's the same thing with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson always straddles must start or flex territory. This week against the Raiders, the matchup is there for him. I like Garrett Wilson. I like Devontae Adams. I will be playing them, and I advise my audience to do the same. Jacoby Myers, I think he's a guy that is an upper tier flex option. And just from a target share with Aiden O'Connell, has not been there like it was for Jimmy Garoppolo. So there's where you need to caution. He got in the end zone last week because he had a running. He had a reverse play that went for a touchdown. You can't count on that week to week, especially against the Jets defense. So That's why he's in flex territory while acknowledging he's a very high upside flex guy, and everybody else is irrelevant. You don't play other Jets wide receivers. Broncos at Bills, Monday night game. Stephon Diggs you don't sit him. And the reason it's good to do this on a Saturday is because Stephon Diggs missed practice on Friday because of a back injury. They're practicing again on Saturday. I'm filming this before practice, so watch Stephon Diggs' situation. Watch him, because if he plays, you'll play him, but we could have a potential problem on our hands, so keep monitoring Stephon Diggs. Courtland Sutton, Gabe Davis, Jerry Jeudy, all flexible, all in different tiers, I would say. Courtland Sutton, upper tier flex options. Consistently targeted as the wide receiver 1, and he's finding the end zone. And the offense is getting better and more efficient. Courtland Sutton can be played, no doubt about it. Gabe Davis, middle end flex option. I said it with Tyler Boyd. This is a guy who can either get you 30 points or he'll get you 0. And last week it was 0 in a good matchup. So you can't count on Gabe Davis. You can't. But you can always play him if you're looking for a big play. Jerry Jeudy still is a lower tier flex option to me. He is. I really don't have much upside for him. There's just not much. He doesn't see consistent targets, and he has just not looked interested in playing this year. So I don't have much upside, faith in him. If you're ravaged with injuries, if you've got bye weeks this week, I get it. Play Jerry Jeudy if you want a potential upside play. I don't think there's much, though. And then everybody else, nada. Let me know what questions you need answered for Week 10 Fantasy Football. And if you want to see the must-start and sit running backs for Week 10 Fantasy Football, click on this video right here.